On the weekend, Justin Trudeau made a trip to Ukraine. Here's a photo of it arriving, being greeted by a Ukrainian politician named Andriy Melnick. I'll talk about him a bit more. It was a surprise trip to Ukraine for Trudeau, but in a way not surprising. Trudeau's far better received there than he is here in Canada, where he's heckled mercilessly whenever he appears in public spaces that aren't controlled by his staff.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! You fucking piece of shit! Fucking pedophile! Fuck you!
But it's not just the common people in Canada who are turning against Trudeau. The fancy people, well, they're giving Trudeau a hard time too. Dave Johnson, the disgraced former Governor General, hired by Trudeau to make his Chinese corruption scandal go away. Well, Johnson resigned, and it looks just awful. A new poll by Abacus Research, which is run by a liberal activist, by the way, so they're certainly as pro-Trudeau as they get, they found that only 20% of Canadians think Trudeau deserves to be re-elected. That's incredible. That's the little red bar at the bottom there. 20% of Canadians think he's doing well. So basically, I don't know, that's all the government employees, Chinese diplomats, and CBC staff, and that's about it. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to Ukraine to be treated like a rock star? Trudeau just gave away another $500 million to Ukraine's war. No debate in the House of Commons about it, let alone a vote. I mean, there was no debate or vote about giving $13 billion to Volkswagen to build a battery factory in Canada. $500 million here, $13 billion there. Pretty soon you're talking real money. Gee, I wonder why we're having inflation and high taxes. The media that accompanied Trudeau on his trip to Ukraine were gushing over him, of course. Look at this tweet from the Globe and Mail's Mark McKinnon, just as one example. He says, at the Canadian Embassy in Kyiv, I asked PM Justin Trudeau whether he would take a phone call from Vladimir Putin. After a long pause, I bet it was very dramatic. He said he'd never considered the question. Quote, he is not someone that I have a particular level of trust or interest in at this point. That's your question for Trudeau? Look, whatever you think of Putin, there are various reasons why he might call, I don't know, Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky, or America's Joe Biden, or France's Emmanuel Macron, or the UK's Rishi Sunak, or Xi Jinping of China, or Erdogan, or Germany's Scholz. In what possible scenario could you imagine, either a good or a bad reason, can you think of any reason why Putin would call Justin Trudeau? I mean, is there a less consequential leader on the world stage? Is there a weaker lightweight than Trudeau? I'm truly curious in what scenario the Globe and Mail thinks Putin would telephone Trudeau. I mean, for good or bad reasons. Can you think of one? Even the United States and the United Kingdom and Australia have just set up their own foreign affairs club called AUKUS, so they don't have to include Canada anymore. Here's that same Mark McKinnon when Trudeau arrived this weekend. He tweets, in standing up for press freedoms during his visit to Kyiv, Justin Trudeau rediscovers Canada's historic role in Ukraine. My take. Yeah, really. Trudeau standing up for press freedoms, that's a new one. But for now, just look at that photo again. You see that man there again, that Andriy Melnick. He met Trudeau and was touring him around the capital. Now, I read Mark McKinnon's entire story in the Globe and Mail, and it doesn't mention Melnick. Same with every other media company that covered the trip. None of them mentioned Melnick, but there's no chance they didn't know who he is. He's the deputy foreign minister of Ukraine. That's why he was meeting Trudeau and touring him around. That's why he was the official greeter. But he's much more than that. He's a notorious Holocaust denier and Nazi sympathizer. For real. I mean, a real Nazi, not a Nazi, like Trudeau calls anyone who disagrees with him. Andriy Melnick is a passionate defender of the Nazis, and he has caused international incidents over it. I mean, watch just for a couple of minutes as he goes on a rant about how the Jews are lying to him about the Holocaust and about how Stepan Bandera, Ukraine's leading Nazi during the Second World War, was actually a good guy and don't believe the lies about him. This is an excerpt from a much longer show. This wasn't a gaffe or an accident or a secret recording. Andriy Melnick was on the record very proudly and stubbornly defending the Nazi project in Ukraine. Watch for a bit.
das, was sie...
Es
was
gab
du
mehrere
nennst.
Massaker an Polen in der Westukraine, durchgeführt von den
Ja,
Bandera.
und es gab auch auf gleiche Weise die gleichen Massaker der Polen gegenüber der Ukraine. Auch Zehntausende
macht
Ukrainer...
ja nichts besser.
Zehntausende Ukrainer wurden, das war ein Krieg. Und deswegen, das wollen jetzt die Polen, also diese Geschichte politisieren. Wir sind dagegen.
Aber hat Israel Unrecht? Israel, der Staat Israel,
Ja,
das
wir haben-
800.000
ja.
wurden auch von Banderas Truppen
also
und Bandera umgebracht.
was
Denken Sie
heißt,
sich das aus?
ich weiß nicht, was sie sich ausdenken, aber wir reden über Bandera, ja? Und wir reden über
Und die
Bandera.
ganze Welt erkennt an, dass Bandera an der Ermordung von 100.000 Juden beteiligt ist.
Nein, das stimmt
Außer
nicht.
die Ukraine.
Es gibt keine Belege, dass Bandera-Truppen Hunderttausende Juden ermordet haben. Es gibt keine Belege. Das ist diese Narrative, dass die Russen bis heute durchsetzen und das in Deutschland und auch in Polen und in Israel auch Unterstützung
Denken
findet.
sich die jüdischen Gemeinden das alle aus?
Ich weiß nicht, woher sie diese Daten nehmen, aber ich bin bereit, auch mit den jüdischen Gemeinden darüber sachlich zu reden, wenn sie wirklich nicht nur das wiederholen, was wir seit Jahrzehnten hören. Bandera ist...
Es gab Flugblätter, als die Deutschen reingekommen sind nach
Ja.
Lviv. Da hieß es, Volk, das musst du wissen, Moskowiten, Polen, Ungarn und Juden, sie sind deine Feinde, vernichte sie, das musst du wissen, deine Führung, dein Führer Stepan Bandera.
Was für Flugblätter?
Als die Deutschen gerade einmarschiert sind, da haben sie quasi an die Bevölkerung das verteilt, die ja noch unter anderer Herrschaft dann da waren. Die haben sich ja mit den Deutschen verbrüdert. Das ist doch ganz klar.
Also...
Und ich frage mich halt, ich verstehe...
Also ich werde
André.
dir heute nicht sagen, dass ich mich davon distanziere. Und das war's. Ja.
Das
Und das war's.
ist ja deine Entscheidung. Ich
Ja,
frag
das
mich
ist meine
nur-
Entscheidung
ich-
und
ich
das
frag-
kannst
ich
du
frag-
nicht verstehen, aber weil
Nee, ich verstehe nicht,
Ja.
wie man jemanden als Helden bezeichnen kann, der gleichzeitig Massenmörder von Juden und Polen war.
Bandera war kein Massenmörder von Juden und Polen. Er war kein Massenmörder.
That was part of a lengthy conversation. He denies that the Nazis killed 800,000 Ukrainian Jews. He said there was zero evidence of it. He said that Germany and Poland and Israel were all lying about it. In effect, he said those countries were faking the Holocaust and that it didn't actually happen that way. Those countries were shocked. Poland and Israel lodged an official diplomatic protest. Germany, which doesn't take kindly to Holocaust deniers, pressed Ukraine to dismiss Melnick as their ambassador to Germany, and they did. Melnick literally caused an international incident by championing the leading Ukrainian Nazi leader. It was so serious, Ukraine actually caved and fired him. Else Germany would have deported him, I suppose. And that's literally the first man Trudeau met with when he arrived in Kiev. That's the man who toured around the city with Trudeau. Oh, and look who was there too, Chrystia Freeland. You might recall that Freeland's own grandfather worked for Bandera, the Ukrainian Nazis. Freeland's grandfather actually published a Nazi newspaper in Ukraine that he had expropriated from a Jew, actually. I'm not blaming Freeland for her grandfather, how could I? But she kept his identity a secret and whitewashed it and claimed it was Russian propaganda. She literally tried the same tactic as Andrei Melnick, of claiming that any concerns were fake. Chrystia Freeland's grandfather was a Ukrainian Nazi, and she tried to hide it. And there she is on the weekend, proudly touring around Kiev with Justin Trudeau, under the guidance of Ukraine's most senior Nazi sympathizer, Andrei Melnick. He's not shy about his views. He's not a nobody. He was the former ambassador to Germany. He caused a multinational scandal. It's still scandalous that he's in the Ukrainian government at all, but for Trudeau and Freeland to choose to be toured around with him, publicly no less, is so utterly gross. Before Melnick had his video rant against the Jews in Israel, Trudeau and Freeland might have been able to plead ignorance, but after? No. The only possible explanation is that they're fine with him. Either they're fine with him and they don't mind spending time with him, learning from him, being led by him. Either they're fine with that, or God forbid, they actually agree with them. It's got to be one of the two. That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.